Good afternoon, evening, or morning. Leah Parsons coming in for my weekly series talking about grief, trauma, spirituality, the healing path, the mind, body, spirit, all the things that inspire me and hopefully inspire you to embrace your one precious life. But I'm also coming in to call myself out because I declared to myself and to you that I would be in every week to do a mini short little video series about these topics on Mondays. Yesterday I didn't do one, and last Monday I didn't do one either. And then I told myself, well, it doesn't really matter because nobody's going to call me out on that. Nobody's going to notice that. However, when we make a promise to ourselves, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And sometimes when we start doing something that's new, whether it's on our healing journey, whether we want to make small changes to enhance our life and to move in the direction of healing, at first we might do it for a little bit and then we'll kind of silently start checking out. It's the same with healthy eating, moving the body, because the person we're most accountable to is ourselves. So we can kind of convince ourselves that it doesn't really matter if we miss this day or that day, or we can start again next week, right? And that's what I did with this YouTube channel in the last 7 days plus one. However, on my healing journey, over these last years of healing deep pain and grief, I have learned to show up for myself and to show up for myself every day. And maybe I don't show up for myself in like the 10 ways, but I will show up for myself, my mind, my body, my spirit every day. And I do that because there's a bit of practice, but also I've set intentions. And when we set intentions, they're like sending little prayers out to the universe. So when we set an intention for ourselves and we plant it in our heart, there will be things in our life throughout the day, throughout the week, that will remind us of that. And that's when we have the choice to honor our intentions that we set or to turn away from them. And so on my healing journey, I show up for myself in many ways, but it's only because I've been committed and it's been a practice that's been implemented so many times now that it's a well-worn pathway for me to move my body, my spirit, the way I eat, the way I feed myself spiritually, and the way I move my body every day has been a commitment that has resulted in huge transformations, but it was in the little daily choices that I made. So this YouTube channel and this series is the same thing. I could have easily convinced myself out of it not to do it anymore, and maybe one day it won't serve me anymore and I choose not to do it. But that's different than trying to talk myself into, well, nobody will notice. You don't really have to show up in that way every day and share these insights. It doesn't really matter, Leah. There's lots of YouTube videos out there. And showing up. So today, this topic kind of runs right into the next topic that I wanted to speak about today, which is when we're born, there is something that we're born with. There are things within us that are sitting there. They're like seeds that have been planted and they're waiting to be watered. Now, as a child, we might find it easy to kind of water those and just naturally do things because nobody told us that we're no good at it, we shouldn't go that direction. So we have these natural things to explore. So I encourage you to think back on your childhood. And even if you didn't have a good childhood and maybe you had to learn some coping skills to deal with some chaos going on in your life and around you, even in those coping skills, at that time, those are things that you created Those are gifts that you came up with. Those are gifts that you kind of unwrapped and said, oh, if I can do this, I feel safe and protected. Or if I can go over here and write my journal, or do this, or maybe it's coloring, maybe it's going out in nature, getting out of your home and connecting. Whether you had a good childhood or you didn't, exploring that is really important. So some coping mechanisms that worked really well in childhood may not serve you any longer as an adult. But we'll get into that topic another day. But as we move from our childhood into our adolescence and trying to figure out who we are and all the hormonal changes, we kind of start leaving pieces of us behind. Hopefully, as a young adult, we come back to those and start exploring the things that really matter to us. Or maybe we don't, and the universe is knocking and nudging. So I call those spiritual nudges, and we all get those along the way. So we might be going in one direction, and you get this sense that a deep intuitive hit that don't go there, or go in this direction, and it's so clear and it's so aligned with something deep inside of you that you go in that direction. Now, if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, you might go against your intuition and take what you might consider a wrong path, which no path is really wrong. It just takes you off your course. And then you might come back on that pathway, your spiritual aligned pathway later. But what you've learned when you went off course is so valuable, because it's in those places, in the struggle and in the suffering, that we learn so much if we turn towards it. And we look at it as a learning lesson, a life lesson, instead of, oh my gosh, I messed up so bad, or I should, like, that was, how could I be so stupid to get married to that person, or to take that job, or not fulfill my education, or go to school and take the wrong course of action, the wrong programs. There's no wrong choices. We learn and we get back on our path. So spiritual nudges, here's I've had many, and I'm sure you have too. I can remember working in this club as a bartender. And I had dropped out of school when I was 16 because of my own traumas, my own rape, and not being able to share it, and just feeling really crushed by life. And I remember as a bartender, I was waiting with my cash, my till, ready to go behind the bar. This place was just packed. It was a really popular place, waiting for my shift. It was so busy, and everything felt so loud, because I often, looking back now, there was a low-level anxiety happening when I was in a situation where everything else was moving really fast, and I felt like it was faster than my nervous system could handle, not realizing even back then that I had a lot of trauma. So I had already had PTSD and didn't know it, just because my nervous system would get so easily triggered from noises and sounds and lights and music. So as I was waiting to get into behind the bar in my shift, a very clear, strong voice popped into my awareness, into my head, and said, "You don't belong here." And I was like, what is that? You don't belong here. We got bigger plans for you. That's a spiritual nudge. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, go away. You might call that your intuition, your higher self, your inner knowing, spirit source, the universe talking to you. But I dismissed it because I wasn't ready to hear it. So that's a little nudge. I could have turned towards it, not in that moment. I was going to work. I could have turned towards it after and said, I wonder what that's about. And seeing if I get some more information, which I'm 99% sure that I would have found more information, but instead I just shoved it away. Another time, many years later, I guess not that many years later, maybe 6-7 years later,